So I keep being bothered by this situation at Nike because I read a bunch of case studies about this, and those HR people heard these stories firsthand, and for some reason they didn't tell anyone, or they did and they were dismissed. So what do we do now? What if someone comes to you tomorrow and says, this is happening to me. I'm afraid our CEO doesn't care. I'm going to get fired if I report this. Where do we go from here? What are we going to do today if that comes across our desk?
Who here is in HR? Any HR professionals? Yeah. So a lot of these instances, as Jennie mentioned, there was HR in the companies. Often complaints were made directly to HR and no action was taken. So what I'd love to hear from you folks is, well, if you have any speculations on how or why that happened, but moreover, what can you do? So even if you have HR in your organization, how can you both enable and empower HR? And on the flip side, how can you hold HR accountable and make sure that something like this does not go unnoticed?
So there are a few questions there. Is the first how to empower HR? Is it how to hold them accountable? Is it how to do all those things? So it's not a really popular answer, but HR needs a different model. So two things are true, usually. There are times that HR is trying to do the right thing and they're not the decision maker. And they're saying the right things and speaking truth to power. And because they're not the decision maker, because of the way the model should work, which is you don't want the person doing the investigating that is the decision maker, that doesn't typically work out well, usually. So you have to give HR, and HR must demand a different seat at the table. Meaning, if HR is still going to operate in traditional HR mode and not in true business partner mode, then we shouldn't expect to have our voices fully heard at the table. So you have to be able to pull up your chair and really understand why you do what you do. It's not a caretaker, you're not the heavy. I am a business partner. I understand how to run businesses. It's what I've done. I can read a P&L like anybody else. I know what a balance sheet is. I understand basis points. I know what our company BHAG is, and I'm bound and determined to get us there. I use people as my lever to do it. That's what I do. And so if you want that, then you should bring me in. And if you don't want that, if you want someone to babysit and hand out the orca cards and plan the birthday parties and do all that, baby, don't call me. Never actually call me. Don't. So HR must demand a different seat at the table, but they must show up differently to earn that seat at the table. So that's the first thing I would say. The other thing I would say around, is HR accountable for you not being harassed at work? No. No. The person that harasses you is accountable for you not being harassed at work. Is your company responsible to eliminate people who harass people at work? Absolutely. They can use HR as that vehicle, but they should also use other leaders as that vehicle as well, and that should be part of the culture. So that's a bigger, broader thing than HR. But I have thoughts about HR that other HR professionals don't necessarily sign up for, and that's okay too. We can all get at this a different way. I don't actually care. You have goals that you want to get to, and you're going to get to them through people, and I can help you get there. Full stop. Stop asking people to care about things. Having harassers in your organization is bad for business. It's bad for the goals you have as a CEO or you have as a CFO. It's bad for business. Full stop. When we stop asking people, in my opinion, to care about it ethically, it works better for me. Should they care? Yes. Yes, you should care. If you don't care, do you care about your own money? You care about your own retirement? You care about your stock price? You care what Wall Street thinks? I thought so. So care about it for that reason. I don't require anything else.
Well, yeah. You will find plenty of lawyers out there in the world who will give that advice. Should HR step up? Absolutely not. HR should help protect the company. That is their primary job. I don't believe that. I don't agree with it. Now I think the better and more wonderful answer, and before I hand it off to somebody who's going to probably be a lot nicer than I am, I think, should they step up? I think there's an example and a modeling that can be done. But I think, sort of echoing off what I said earlier, what Amelia said, it's really like what we want to do is we want to create environments where people can feel comfortable speaking to themselves, to someone about a situation. I mean, ideally, we want to create an environment where the situations don't come up. But I think that's crushingly naive to think that we'll never have a problem in the world. Create an environment where people feel comfortable talking. Create an environment where people feel comfortable talking to somebody who might be able to get a problem to a situation where they can make a difference, right? I think diversity is a huge competitive advantage on the basis that, like, wow, for everyone who's dumb enough to only hire white people, like, that's a huge competitive advantage for me, that they've left an entire group of human beings available for me to find that they didn't want to talk to. That's just dumb on their part, and I will capitalize on other people's dumb thoughts all day long. And I think that the idea of being open to people telling you what they need to tell you in order to feel comfortable coming to the job, it's not just a good thing, it's the only way to properly do your business.
As a business owner, the thing that I've realized through my career and my own experiences is where there's smoke, there's fire. And so if you're getting rid of the victim quietly without getting rid of the perpetrator, if there's one string of smoke, there's several burning. And so that was one of the biggest things that I actually saw firsthand. If anybody reads the news, definitely saw it. One complaint is one, take it seriously, but go after the perpetrator, number one, because that's very certainly just one data point. There was somebody at my last firm who got fired for 2 data points. I know of 5. And so you start to go down the list and you think, gosh, you can make it go away from a legal perspective, but you can't actually make it go away until you deal with the problem. I think it has to go all the way up to the top. And I think what HR can do is educate and try your darndest to hold leadership accountable for understanding the very real business impact that this kind of behavior has on performance. Because more than anything, it's a distraction. Because you better believe that if one person is on the receiving end of it, they're taking their friends out for lunch and they're talking about it and they're going to meetings distracted because it's on their mind and they're bugged by it, and their friends start to get disenfranchised because that starts to bleed out, and pretty soon you've got this nexus of negativity because of one person's bad behavior, and it becomes an infection, and that infection spreads like crazy. And so that's the thing that I think HR could really do, is educate leadership and try your darndest to hold them accountable for the real impact it has to your business, not just because of legal reasons or financial penalty reasons or anything else. It's really that toxicity in people's mentality and their idea of whether or not they're going to be respected and appreciated and treated well at work. That stuff is horrible.
I remember having a conversation, not about harassment, with someone who was struggling at work for various reasons. And I said, what is the absolute worst thing that's going to happen? And she's like, well, I could get fired. And I was like, is that the worst thing? Like, is that it? And she said, yes. And I was like, then that's not the worst thing. Then fired is not the worst thing. And I don't mean to put the onus on women for a problem we did not literally create. And so please don't hear me saying that. But if fired is all you got, bring it. You can go ahead and fire me, because I'm always going to do the right thing and not the thing that I think is the most expedient thing. But you probably figured that out about me, sentence 1. I have survived better than fired in my life. So you better bring something bigger than that. And if you're an HR professional and you want to be an HR professional or in anything, a CEO, a CFO, or whatever worth your salt, then fired can't be the thing you're afraid of. It just can't. You got to look fired in the face and say, like, please, I can be employed. I'm employable. And I can figure this out. Because literally, if that's the worst thing you have, like, this is going to be my face at you all day. So that's my perspective. I'm gonna have to do the right thing and the thing that squares up for me so I can look in the mirror every day. That might be different for someone else. Yes, it's part of my job to, quote, protect the company, but sometimes I'm protecting the company from itself. That's sometimes my job. My job is to speak truth at all times, not just the times where it's expedient or comfortable or people are applauding. It is those times when I go to the CEO and go, what do you want to argue about today? And we do.
Yeah. And it's a hard, the question that Jennie asked is a really hard question without a good answer. And I love Amelia's boldness and also the acknowledgement that we have to be in a certain place of privilege to be willing to be fired or to walk away. Like I've walked away, right? I've been just asked to do things that lacked integrity, and that I said, well, as an HR leader, I'm not going to do those things. I'm not going to ask my team to do those things. And I know what that means for me, right? That means that I need to move on. But I had to have certain things in place to have that confidence and be able to do that, and not everybody does. It's extremely tough. So that is the end of the formal program, but thank you all so much for coming. I thought, please, a huge hand to our panelists. Who were amazing and candid and gave us just a little bit of tough love and a lot of really good ideas.